38 years later, William Shatner's rejected Star Trek Enterprise appearance would have explained Kirk's mirror universe mystery weapon. When Star Trek Enterprise was limping toward its cancellation in 2005, the producers were desperate for a ratings boost. Paramount and UPN knew the show was ending, and the creators looked to the one man who could still command mainstream attention across the galaxy, William Shatner. A plan was hatched to bring Captain Kirk into Enterprise's fourth season, weaving him into a story that would have simultaneously honored the original series and deepened the lore of Star Trek's most notorious alternate reality, the Mirror Universe. But Shatner's return never materialized. Negotiations fell through, and the story was shelved. Yet if Shatner had stepped aboard the NX-01, the resulting arc might have resolved one of Star Trek's oldest Mirror Universe mysteries. Just how did Kirk's counterpart seize power so quickly after his rise in Mirror? The scrapped appearance wasn't just fan service, it would have explained the origins of a legendary secret weapon in the Mirror Universe, tying Shatner's Kirk to a pivotal piece of Star Trek mythology. Shatner's unmade Enterprise guest role. By 2005, Shatner was enjoying renewed cultural relevance. His quirky Priceline ads and an Emmy-winning run on Boston Legal had made him pop culture royalty again. Rick Berman and Brannon Braga, the guiding hands behind Enterprise, saw an opportunity. They pitched a two-part story titled The Mirror of the Mirror that would fold Shatner into the Mirror Universe arc. According to Braga, the plan was for Shatner to play Tiberius, a descendant of Kirk who had risen to prominence in the Terran Empire. This mirror counterpart would have crossed paths with Jonathan Archer's crew in the infamous Enterprise two-parter In a Mirror, Darkly, which had already reintroduced fans to the Mirror Universe in spectacular fashion. In theory, Shatner's appearance would have bridged the gap between Enterprise and TOS by showing how the Empire's militarism, paranoia, and political scheming eventually created the environment where Kirk's mirror double could rise to the rank of captain. But Shatner himself reportedly wanted more than just a one-off cameo. He pitched his own story ideas, including a genetic clone angle that would allow him to play a version of the real James T. Kirk, still alive centuries before his time thanks to medical trickery. Neither side could agree, and the idea collapsed. Still, what might have been is tantalizing, especially when you connect it to the biggest unanswered question about Kirk's Mirror Universe exploits. The enigma of Kirk's mysterious weapon. When audiences first encountered the Mirror Universe in TOS Mirror 1967, Kirk's doppelganger was already infamous. Spock immediately noted that Mirror Kirk had risen to captain by assassinating Christopher Pike, planting rumors of advanced weapons, and ruling the Enterprise crew with an iron fist. In later Star Trek tie-in novels and comics, references abound to the Terran Empire having a secret weapon that gave it dominance across the stars. But the weapon's nature was left deliberately vague. Was it a super-destructive starship technology? A forbidden energy source? Some kind of biogenic warfare device? Even later canon stories in Deep Space Nine and Discovery avoided pinning it down. Mirror Kirk's power grab and the tools he used to maintain it have remained one of the longest-running mysteries in Star Trek. Here's where Shatner's appearance in Enterprise might have provided an elegant answer. How Shatner could have solved the puzzle. Imagine this, in the planned Enterprise two-parter, Shatner's Tiberius or clone Kirk interacts with Archer's crew while seeking control of the USS Defiant, the 23rd Century Constitution-class starship that had been lost in the Tholian web and deposited into the past. In canon, In a Mirror, Darkly already showed how the Terran Empire captured the Defiant, giving Mirror Archer a devastating technological advantage. But the story was left unfinished when Archer was killed, leaving fans to wonder how this technology eventually played into the rise of later Mirror officers. Shatner's involvement could have tied it directly to Mirror Kirk. Tiberius might have been the one to secure the Defiant's advanced weapons systems, adapting its 23rd century phasers and shields into designs that the Empire jealously guarded as its trump card. That mystery weapon Spock referenced in TOS could have been the technological legacy of the Defiant itself, passed down through the Empire thanks to Kirk's ancestors. Even better, Shatner's Kirk could have been portrayed as the architect of a doctrine that blended Federation idealism with Imperial ruthlessness. His descendants, including Mirror Kirk, would inherit both the literal weapons and the ideological edge that made him so dangerous. The poetic symmetry of Kirk and Archer. There's a certain elegance in the idea of tying Kirk's Mirror legacy back to Enterprise. Jonathan Archer's journeys in the Mirror universe had already established him as a pivotal Terran figure. But having Shatner appear as either Tiberius or a displaced Kirk would have created a thematic bookend. Archer would represent the earliest fumblings of humanity's imperial arrogance, while Kirk, real or mirror, would embody its apex. By bringing Shatner into the story, Enterprise could have drawn a clear line from the NX-01's corruption in the Mirror timeline to the infamous tyranny of Kirk's era. Fans would see how the seeds of cruelty planted in the 22nd century bore fruit in the 23rd. And in doing so, the story could have finally revealed what Kirk's secret weapon was all along: the stolen Defiance technology, safeguarded by the Kirk lineage in the Mirror universe. Why it matters 38 years later. It has now been 38 years since Mirror first aired, and the allure of the Mirror universe is stronger than ever. Discovery devoted entire arcs to it. Lower decks and strange new worlds have kept its iconography alive. And the Terran Empire remains one of Star Trek's most enduring what-if experiments. But one thing fans still debate endlessly is how Mirror Kirk pulled it off. Why was he so feared? What gave him an edge beyond simple brutality? Shatner's unmade Enterprise episode would have answered that while also cementing his legacy in the final Star Trek prequel. The timing would have been perfect, too. In 2005, Enterprise was on the brink of cancellation, desperate for ratings. A Shatner appearance could have generated headlines, reinvigorated fan discourse, and given the show a proper send-off by explicitly connecting it to TOS. Instead, the series ended with the controversial finale, These Are the Voyages, a send-off many fans still regard as a misfire. Had Shatner's story aired, it's possible the NX-01's final season would be remembered far more fondly, and Kirk's Mirror legacy would finally have its canonical foundation. A lost chapter in Shatner's Trek. For William Shatner himself, the missed opportunity is bittersweet. He has long expressed interest in returning to Star Trek, often pitching ideas about resurrecting Kirk after his death in Generations. While Paramount has never pulled the trigger on his proposals, the Enterprise cameo was the closest he came to officially stepping back into Trek canon after 1994. At 74 years old in 2005, Shatner could still have convincingly played either a future descendant or a reimagined Kirk thanks to the Mirror universe's flexible storytelling rules. And his involvement would have given him a dignified way to reconnect with the franchise without requiring a full resurrection. Instead, the story was abandoned, and the mystery weapon,